effort on your part to start getting shorter and sweeter and more concise and more web-friendly with those emails, all right? So you've got to ask that permission to mail. If you have someone's email address, you do not have permission to slap them onto your e-newsletter. One technique that I've seen work well, and in fact, Network for Good, I used to work for Network for Good, and Katya Andreessen was here last year speaking. One of the things we used to do was an information barter. We had this great paper about some of the work that we did and about, effective online engagement. And so if you wanted to download that paper, then great, give us your email address and your name and we'll send it to you. You are then allowed to send that person one email because you have a business relationship with them. You can send them one email to say, this is how great our e-newsletter is and how it's going to change your life. We'd love you to sign up for it. Okay? But you cannot take that email address and slap it on your e-newsletter list. That's a terrible thing. I mean, I've interacted with organizations and suddenly I start getting all their emails. And that almost builds up resentment. I'm like, you didn't even ask me. And so, no, I'm not, again, just an extra pair of eyes to let you do that. So really making sure that you ask for permission. One of my students at the University of San Francisco, there's a Master's of Nonprofit Administration degree program there that I teach the technology class. And I helped one of my master's students, I was her advisor, and she looked at what nonprofits do on their website online in terms of interactive blogs and things like that. And she measured that against the percentage of funds that they raised online. So not dollars, because it differed from different organizations, but the percentage of dollars raised online. But one thing she found that had the highest correlation was letting folks specify the topic and frequency of communication. So again, not necessarily that you're going to have 3 different e-newsletters, but if you regularly produce content about bears, eagles, and salmon, can you let me say, I'm most interested in the content about bears? And again, you might slip in a salmon story, once in a while, that's fine, but ask me what I'm interested in. I mean, even if you deal with, if you're a youth organization that deals with, ballet, some people are interested in the arts, some people are interested in education, some people are interested in kids, some people have, some relationship to that. So people come at it from different things. And if you're like some organizations who have 30 different programs and serve all sorts of different people, that can be a real challenge. And so it's really important to start thinking about, okay, how can I start, putting these in areas and ask folks so I get a real handle on, this is their, what's really important to them about my organization. And then to make regular contact. My belief is that once a month is what's great for an e-newsletter. And I'll show you an example of what I think is an effective newsletter in a minute. But if I don't hear from you for a couple months, with all the emails that I get every day, I might forget I signed up for it, and I might even report you as a spammer. And you don't want that. And you also need to keep track of that asking permission. Because I don't know if you've had any of your colleagues this happen to, but if you get labeled as a spammer by, for example, Yahoo or somebody, they'll stop sending your email to everyone who has a Yahoo address. And you get to spend 6 weeks proving to them that you have permission to email these folks before they'll take you off their blacklist. Then when you're done with that, you get to then go to MSN or Hotmail or Google and do that whole process over again. It's a nightmare. So it's much better to keep and understand permission. Any question? Awesome. You use a constant contact, so it has an unsubscribe option. That doesn't save you from, if I attend an event and I give you my email address, but I never ask for your e-newsletter, that doesn't save you from me calling you a spammer if you start sending me email. You've got to say, check here if you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter. And if you don't have a monthly newsletter, it's okay to say, regular updates or something. So as long as I know that I'm giving you this email address for that, that's fine. Which reminds me of another thing, which is when you ask me to sign up for your e-newsletter, you need my first name and my last name, because just one of those isn't enough, and my email address. If you ask for or require my physical address, I'm gone. Because I want to hear from you by email, and that's what I want you to do. I don't want you to start getting your physical letters, because for me, as an online person, I know that it costs you $2 to send me that piece of direct mail and 20 cents to send me an email. And so every time you haven't let me specify, every time I get that letter, it goes in the trash along with my estimation of your organization. Because you never asked. So Again, on your to-do list, if you don't have this in your database, I strongly encourage you to have communication preference. And ask me, do you want to hear from us by print, by email, or even by text? You know, if you're forward thinking and you understand, this, texting and this mobile thing is coming. Because if you remember kind of back in probably the early 90s when like email was just coming and suddenly it was the primary thing and people were like, oh, I wish I'd been collecting email addresses. To me, the same thing is true with mobile numbers. You should be starting to collect mobile numbers so that when you get to a point of doing text campaigns, you've got some. But just how important that is to make sure. So having that, using constant contact is great, and having that unsubscribe is really important because folks will want to unsubscribe, and you've got to respect that. Because if I say unsubscribe and I get your e-newsletter the next week, that's even worse. Is anyone using Outlook to send bulk email out to their donors, like outside of the organization? Okay, good. If you are, you were too shy to raise your hand. I beg you to stop doing that, all right? Again, Idealware, who I mentioned before, Idealware has a wonderful report about a few low-cost email donation tools. So I see some of you writing that down, so you didn't raise your hand, but that's fine. Because Outlook, you cannot measure the metrics in Outlook. It's not going to tell you, and I can't unsubscribe. So kudos to you for using a bulk email tool like that. A lot of them aren't very expensive, and they really allow you to do those best practices, all right? Great. All right, so what are some of the cornerstones of email? Number one is personal. Personalizing messages with data. The days of dear friend, thank you for your recent gift, are over, people. If I get that email from you, again, I feel like I've got ATM stamped on the top of my head, and I'm just some cash machine to you. You don't care about my name or my last gift. Just as in Microsoft Word, where you can do a mail merge, where you can put in someone's name or things like that, using something like Constant Contact and a template, it's very easy for you to pull out of your database. You're on top of your database. For you to pull out John, $50, July 20th. And then in your email, say, Dear John, thank you for your $50 gift on July 20th. That feels so much different to me than Dear friend, thanks for your recent gift. It's almost sarcastic at this point. Now, I don't mean you have to personalize, every single message, but again, you may also think of how can I personalize these in kind of broad categories about, I don't know if you've heard the example from the ASPCA, but what they did was they took the same email. They identified folks who were dog owners, cat owners, and folks that they didn't know. Cat owners, there was a picture of a cat in the email and the word cat in the subject line. Dog owners, dog picture, dog in the subject line. Everybody else, dog and cat picture, dog and cat in the subject line. When they looked at that and they compared that to the other emails that weren't segmented, they raised 40% more from those emails compared to the other emails, just because they were paying attention to this is what's important to you, your pet, or this is your interest, all right? So thinking about segmenting them and kind of personalizing those with data. Targeted, so just what I was saying about segmenting lists. Because, you may want to talk to folks who have been given to you in a year in a different way than folks that are monthly donors, all right? So that just makes sense. You don't want to go crazy. Having 100 different segmented lists that you've got to manage probably isn't good, but can you think of some basic division of 3 or 4 different kind of segments and how that might apply to your fundraising letter or your e-newsletter? And again, integrated. This is about integration, that your email is integrated with your web content, with direct mail, with your social media, all that. So again, if you're telling me about a story or some important campaign that you're doing, or you're participating in the day of giving or something like that, great. I need to see that same message across your different media. And again, trackable. Make sure that you are tracking stuff, and that you're looking at the data of how many people opened this email and what did they click on. And does anyone not know what a click-through rate is? Great, okay, so it means that, if you've got several links in your email, if I click on that, you can measure, of the people that opened that, how many people clicked on that link. All right, so that was 4 cornerstones. Here's one email tombstone. Here lies email, not really dead, used by kids only to talk to the man. I mean, I'm starting to experience this at USF, and you may experience this, with younger siblings or relatives. That emails for old folks. I text, or if you want to know what's happening with me, go on my wall, look on Facebook, and things like that. So I understand that we want to be aware of and embrace and engage the next generation. But again, email isn't really dying. It's still around, and it's still a primary mode of communication, I think, for a lot of us. So not really that accurate to instead. All right, so then e-newsletter techniques. I really like this TerraPass footprint e-newsletter for a couple of reasons. One is, as I said, a good e-newsletter is not your print newsletter thrown online. It's also not your print newsletter put up as a PDF and available for download. It should be something that comes into my email box, that fits into my email box. There's graphics and short items. One thing that I really like, by the way, that TerraPass does is, rather than October newsletter, they put a micro table of contents in the subject line. So when I'm looking at 500 emails in my email box, October newsletter, I'm kind of yawning. Okay, it's like, yeah, I might love your organization, but it doesn't tell me what's in the email. This tells me there's something about London 2012 and bad science, outdoor launches a project, reuse your food scraps. So I get kind of just this peek into what it is, all right? So I know for some organizations and for some programs you have kind of a character limit, so you may want to keep that in mind as well, but think about that. So short items, visuals with these icons, and think about teasers. What does Elvis have to do with the Bear Center? I don't know. What does Elvis have to do with the Bear Center? Did Jeff do an Elvis invitation?
Next year.
Last year. Next year. All right, next year. Elvis and the Commodores. But think about that as you're writing this. And as you're posting content to the website, thinking, is this headline just saying, great new program?